All right, we are live. Thank you guys for tuning in to another October Pet Spooktacular edition of the Missy Show. We are still your premier source for fun and informative pet topics. I'm your host, Jay, and thankfully joining us, I'm so happy, so thrilled. It's my co-host, Dee. She's here. She made it.
I made it. Thank the Lord. We're just on, you can't see me. So put it that way. I'm so happy you can't see me and you can only hear me. Although I don't know if that's going to be any good either, but yeah, I'm
here. Yeah. Just make sure you keep your camera off. Make sure you don't.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
don't worry.
No mistake.
Don't worry.
Yeah, we don't want to turn it into that kind of show. So.
You really don't want that kind of show. Trust me.
Yeah. We'll sure that stays off. Thank you guys for attending this episode. I'm sorry that it had to be rescheduled, but I was having scary movie night last night with my little niece and my other niece and my little nephew, because her birthday was actually when we did our last show on the 13th, but we were unable to do the sleepover. So we kind of had to move some things around. So I do appreciate you guys' patience, and hopefully this show will be worth the wait. Tonight we are going to be discussing creatures of the night, hags, shadow beings, and grays. So, you know what? I'm kind of familiar with the shadow beings and the grays from, not grays, the shadow beings and the hags from just like family experiences. So I'm going to go in about the grays because that's the one that I don't know as much about, but I've heard things about it because with the other two, I can kind of go on and on just from stories with my mom and grandma, and we'll dive into that part. But I'm going to start off with the grays.
Okay.
So, and it's odd, but like all of them kind of tie in together because some people kind of feel like they're all just different extensions of the same phenomena, but I'll explain that later. But
yeah,
go ahead.
That's what I want to know. What are great? Because I remember I saw you did that topic, and I was like, I kind of had an idea what the other two was, but I was like, okay, what is that? I don't know if I've ever heard of that before.
Yeah, the grays are just basically, and once I get going with it, you'll be like, oh, okay, that's what that is. Those are just the common aliens. Like when you hear people talk about the alien abductions and the bulbous shaped aliens with the big oval black eyes and stuff, and some of them are kind of like short, like they're only like 3 feet tall or whatever, and you hear people talk about being abducted. Those are the grays. Those are like typical like aliens when people talk about being abducted, like how you kind of see in the cartoons or in the movies how they depict aliens, though that's who they're mimicking, like the grays.
Oh, okay. So just all of those, just referencing all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I don't know what we call them, but
that
area.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. And they get that name because most people describe their skin color as being grayish. So that's why they call them the grays. And basically, gray aliens, they're also referred to as Zeta Reticulans, Roswell grays, or simply the grays. They're allegedly extraterrestrial beings whose existence is discussed a lot in UFOlogy, paranormal, and New Age communities. They're typically depicted as dark gray skinned, diminutive humanoid beings that possess reduced forms of or completely lack external human organs such as noses, ears, or sex organs. Their bodies are usually depicted as being elongated, having a small chest, and lacking in muscular definition and visible skeletal structure. Their legs are shorter and jointed differently from what one would expect in a human. Their limbs are often depicted as proportionally different from a human's. Their humerus and thighs are the same length as their forearms and shins. Grays are depicted as having unusually large heads in proportion to their bodies. They are depicted as having no hair anywhere on the body, including the face, and no noticeable outer ears or noses, but only small openings or orifices for ears and nostrils. They're generally depicted as having very small mouths and very large opaque eyes with no discernible iris or pupil. Reports of alleged encounters frequently state their height to be 2 to 4 feet tall, although other varieties of grays are sometimes portrayed as human size or taller. because I have read some research where some people depict them as being like 6 feet tall and like really skinny, but usually they're like the little 2 to 4 feet men. It's sort of like when you hear about the little green men, but this is
Okay.
another classification of them where people usually describe them as being like gray. And I think I read somewhere that like 37 to like 40 some percent of encounters are usually these gray beings when you hear about the
Okay.
abductions and things like that. Um,
Okay. Okay.
it was, what else did I want to say about them? How they first, let's see. Yeah, one of the this of course wasn't the first one, but one of the earliest reports of people having encounters with these beings was Betty and Barney Hill, and is known as the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. It was in 1965. Let's see, and it kind of brought the Grays to international attention. The alleged abductees, Betty and Barney Hill, claimed that in 1961, alien beings had abducted them and taken them to a flying saucer or saucer-shaped spaceship. The term Grays did not come into usage until many years later, but the beings described by the Hills generally fit many characteristics of the Grays. Let's see. It was something else, because even, they're kind of connected with Roswell and all that type of stuff too.
Yeah, because I remember there used to be a show that came on, and I don't know if you even remember this, but there used to be a show that was kind of off of the take of Roswell, the whole alien thing or whatever, that I used to watch. And it was a little bit based on the whole thing of aliens and seeing aliens, but the aliens actually were the people that were in the show. But anyway, it was the whole Roswell kind of a thing, and it was, the whole where Roswell is it? Where is Roswell? Roswell, Nevada, New Mexico. Where is it?
I believe. I think it's.
Okay. Okay, I know it's out there somewhere, and I remember that show and the whole thing, and just remember going behind the scenes and thinking, okay, Roswell, what is this about? And I remember reading a lot of that stuff about aliens and this, and then having those pictures in the books showing what they had believed they looked like and what they found in certain instances and incidents where people were saying that they had been abducted and all this other stuff.
Yeah, and actually now I'm going to research it. I believe it's New Mexico. Let me make sure. Yeah, it's New Mexico.
New Mexico, okay.
Even though there's a Roswell, Georgia too, but yeah, Roswell, New Mexico.
Okay. I remember that. And then Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I remember that too.
Yes.
Watching that as a little kid. And then when the actual thing, and I don't know, because they seem more like it was, I remember that being coming out of that thing. And finally, when they got to see that, I think it was like an illuminated kind of a thing coming out. Did you see that, Jay? Did you ever see Close Encounters of the Third Kind? I think that's the name.
Yes, I'm kind of ashamed to say I didn't see it when it first came out, and I've never watched the movie from beginning to end.
Okay.
So the have seen, I saw them much later, as in maybe within the last 5 years. I know
I remember I didn't see it because I don't know when it came out, but I remember just when it came on. You know how they'll bring on movies on Sundays or something, and it was like Close Encounters of the Third, and I was like, I've never seen that before. I'm gonna watch it. And I remember watching it, and I just remember I got sucked into it for some reason. I was like, okay, well, here I am. And so, and I just remember I wanted to see what they look like. And at the very end, they showed what they look like in the whole thing, because the poor guy in there was just losing his mind and nobody believed him. And he kept just going through all of this other stuff. And I just remember seeing at the very end, and it was a sweet kind of movie at the end. And it was nice. It wasn't like scary or anything like that. It was just strange. For me, it didn't scare me. It was just a strange, fascinating kind of thing to me.
Yeah, and there are mixed reviews on the Greys. There are some people who have described them as being benevolent in their dealings with them, and then there are some people who don't have very nice experiences with them. Because here, let me see, on Gaia.com, they explore their intentions on Earth, and it says, perhaps the greatest mystery of the Greys is their agenda and intentions for planet Earth and the humans that inhabit this world. It is widely agreed that they seem to be involved in a long-term experiment using the genetic makeup of our species. carefully following and abducting individuals, subjecting them to various tests, and attempting to wipe clean the memories of these frightening experiences. Many claim that the Greys communicate through telepathy and often employ mind control when interacting with test subjects. It is said they can stun and subdue people with their dark and fathomless eyes, implanting memories and rendering abductees immobile, which sort of ties in with the sleep paralysis thing, which we'll explore a little bit later with the Old Hag Syndrome. The Greys are highly intelligent beings, but appear to value science above spirituality. They seem to run the gamut as far as intentions go. Some Greys appears unconcerned with human emotions, viewing us as simple test subjects, while other abductees report a positive and emotional connection during their abductions. It is thought that the Greys hold allegiance with several other alien species, either as equals or as a slave class themselves. One more thing, abductees have encountered Greys that work closely with reptilian aliens, and these tend to be malevolent in nature and subservient to the wishes of the reptilians. Others have witnessed Greys that seem to be assisting Nordic aliens, another group of aliens known for their peaceful and spiritual nature. Are the Greys using humans as a genetic farm, or are they perhaps stewards of our species, tracking and observing our evolution? So there's a lot more about them. So I will be sure to post that later after the show, and also put it into our YouTube description.
The Greys. Well, one of the things you threw out there that I was able to do a little bit of research on, not much, but a little bit. But then when I started reading about it, I was like, oh yeah, I know what that is. Was the shadow beings, or the shadow person, or the black mass? Yep. There are many different names. I kind of went to our old trusty Wikipedia, and once I started like doing a little research on it, and they were saying that a shadow person, also known as a shadow figure, also known as a shadow being, or a black mask, is the perception of a patch of shadow as a living humanoid figure, particularly as interpreted by believers in the paranormal or supernatural as the presence of a spirit or entity, which I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. They went on to say a number of religions, legends, and belief systems describe a shadowy spiritual being or supernatural entity, such as shades of an underworld and various shadowy creatures that have long been a staple of folklore and ghost stories. Now, there was a radio show, a late night radio talk show called Coast to Coast AM.
Oh yeah, I know about Coast to Coast AM. One of my favorites.
Is it really? Have you heard of it? Have you listened to it?
Oh yes, I love them. I discovered them maybe like 2008ish or so, 2007, somewhere in there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have never heard of them or anything, but apparently they are the leaders of discussing this, or they brought it to the forefront. Let's put it that way. They brought it to the
about my Native American guy who first was talking about. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. And I like his other name too. There's some other name he goes by. I love that.
Yep. They were talking about, they said the first time the topic of shadow people was discussed at length was on the show, the Coast to Coast AM show, was on April 12th, 2001, when the host, Art Bell, interviewed the Native American elder Thunder Strikes, who is also known as Harley Swiftdeer Reagan. And during the show, listeners were encouraged to submit drawings of shadow people that they had seen, and a number of these drawings were immediately shared publicly on the website. In October of that year, Heidi Hollis published her first book on the topic of shadow people. Do you know about her, Jay?
I don't know about her. I may have listened to, because a lot of the older ones, like with Art Bell, of course, I wasn't listening back then, but I caught up with a lot of that stuff on YouTube. Because a lot of Coast to Coast AM stuff is on YouTube, and you can go back and listen to it.
Okay, I'm going to have to check that out. Well, she later became a regular guest on Coast to Coast. Hollis described shadow peoples as dark silhouettes with human shapes and profiles that flicker in and out of the peripheral vision, and claims that people have reported the figures attempting to jump on their chest and choke them. She believes the figures to be negative alien beings that can be repelled by various means, and including invoking the name of Jesus. So I guess to get rid of them, you invoke the name of Jesus and that spirit will go away. Although participants in the online discussion forums devoted to paranormal and supernatural topics describe them as menacing, Other believers and paranormal authors do not agree with shadow people that are either do not agree whether shadow people are either evil, helpful, or neutral. And some even speculate that shadow people may be the extra dimensional inhabitants of another universe. And some paranormal investigators and authors, such as Chad Stamba, which I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, claim to have recorded images of the shadow people on video. So that goes into, I don't know if I've ever seen anything where you know what? I take that back, because I think I have seen some of those ghost shows where they kind of record stuff and they show like a figure or something, and it appears to be like maybe a shadow person or something like that. But they also have what they believe might be a scientific explanation, or I guess an other version to, if you want to explain it scientifically. Several psychological and sociological conditions can account for the reported experiences of the shadow shapes seeming to be alive. And they go into the whole thing of maybe you're going through sleep paralysis, where you might perceive a shadowy or indistinct shape approaching them, and they lie awake, paralyzed, and become increasingly alarmed. Or they say people that possibly take methamphetamines also say that they see shadow people, and it's probably because of the prolonged periods of sleep deprivation that you go through when you're on such drug. So, so, I mean, I guess it could go into, I mean, I have my own experiences with this particular thing.
Yes, so has my mom, because see, they come in different varieties, because on another site I saw where, you know, some people describe them as the hat man, where some, they say that's a common one, where it looks like the shadow being actually has some form of a hat on, like a top hat, or it can just be a regular hat. And then the variety my mom has seen when she was younger, she says, you know, as a little girl, she would see the kind, just seems like they were just walking and shuffling around her bed, but they seem more hooded, because they're the version of them that look like they're kind of shrouded or have a hood on or something. So there are different varieties of them. You know, I have never seen, I've never seen that version of it, but as a little girl, I remember, and I don't know, maybe I've shared this story on here before, but I've seen a shadow that was just, it was like a regular shadow. It never moved, and it was just up against the wall. It was never like how these things, they're actually like walking, or they're like standing out from the wall. But the one that I would see, it was short, like it was a child. But I remember I could only see the head, neck, and shoulders. I could just see like the silhouette, like you know, those doll heads that
where you used to do the hair.
Yeah.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But it was just like that, and I never recall seeing like complete arms and the rest of the torso and legs or anything, but it was just like the head, neck, and shoulders, and it would just be up against the wall. And I remember I would just like kind of tap my mom, and I'd be like, hey, do you see that? You know, and I point, it never moved, thank goodness, it never moved. But the thing is, she could never see it. And I just remember she would get up and cut the light on, and it would kind of like disappear or whatever. But it's just like, I just remember at different intervals in that room that I slept in with her from time to time, because I also slept with my grandma at times. But when I slept in that room with my mom, I would see this shadow, but just luckily this one never moved, never knew what it was. But she would always try to say, well, maybe it's just, you know, the light, you know, from the street light outside, and it's reflecting on a tree or blah, blah, blah. But I just never bought that it would be perfectly in the shape of a head, neck, and shoulders like that, you know. So I never knew what that was. But I've never seen the version that most people think of when they say a shadow person.
Yeah. Mine are, and I don't want to get too deep into it because they still occur. So I've never, like I said, I've never gotten like an evil feeling, but like I've always said, when we talk about stuff like this, in my experiences, especially where I live at now, I've never gotten a sense of, you know, badness from it. When you know, Boomer was here, he would pick up on stuff that where it didn't sit right with him. Boomer being my dog that has gone on to Rainbow Bridge, but he would pick up on stuff, and you could tell right away, because there was some that, most of the ones that would come to him were friendly and they would play with him. But there was always this one, don't know which one it is, but he did not like it. He did not like this, and he would let it known, and it would come out in certain different times in different ways, and it just would, he would just it would just make his hair literally, and you know what kind of dog he was. He was a chow mix, and he had that thick hair. And so when he would get angry, which didn't happen much, but when he did, that hair would stand up on the back of his neck and his back, and it would be like a mohawk. And because he was the sweetest dog that you could ever, meet.
Yes.
But when this would happen, you would get the full on brunt of who he was, as far as I'm going to tear you from limb to limb kind of a thing. And it wouldn't happen often. It didn't happen much. But when it did happen, whatever it was, he did not like it at all.
Would the episodes last very long, or like shortly after Boomer would get really defensive, would it just maybe be like a minute or so, and it would just kind of
it would vary. It just depended, like the particular time where it happened with when we had relatives here. And I told you about our little Joe, our cousin that would come to visit, and it happened where I don't know exactly what it was behind her, and he saw it. And she was like, when she first came here, I don't know what it was, but Boomer would attach himself to certain people, and he adored her. And because she was a little person, I don't know if that was it, or if he thought, because he loved children. So I didn't know if he thought that maybe she was a child or something, but she loved him. And he just adored her, and he would be around her all the time. And she was sitting at this particular place in the den, and behind her was a wall, and she was sitting on the sofa. And for some reason, he was there with her, but then all of a sudden he turned around and he wasn't looking at her. That's why we knew it wasn't something that he was directing at her. He was looking behind her, over her shoulder, at something.
Oh, wow.
And whatever it was, he was ready. I mean, literally at any moment, he could have jumped at it. So we had to get him back. And she was like, okay, Boomer, well, let me move out the way. But whatever, and even when she moved, he was still at it. So I don't know. But then there were times, and I always tell you, the room that's most active in our house, he would, that's the room where they would play with him, with the nice ones or whatever. But this particular one just would make him lose his mind. So I don't know. I never saw any like shadow, but like this particular one. But for me, when I see certain things, it's just one of those things where you see something that just goes, like something is passing by, like zoop, just walks by or moves by or shadow by or something. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, or that corner of your eye syndrome.
Yeah, you're like,
sometimes it can be more like that.
Right. Okay. And I never get a bad feeling. I never get a whatever feeling. So I don't put too much thought in. I never have. So I don't put too much thought into it. And like the thing where I saw I don't know what it was, but it wasn't dark. This was a lady in white or whatever. I don't know. So it wasn't, I don't know if this would be classified as a shadow being or whatever. But like I said, I've never gotten a bad feeling from anything. So it's not a thing of where I'm like, okay, we need to call in folks or whatever. Never. I mean, we've had our things. You've heard about them.
Oh yeah.
We've never got like a bad feeling from it. So, we live in harmony, and I want to continue to live in harmony.
Good. Mm-hmm. So when Boomer would have those rare instances where him and whatever this was, you would never feel whatever it was he was.
No, because it was strictly him, and we would always be like, okay. When it first happened, we were like, what the crap is going on right now? But because I think prior to us getting him, we had experienced stuff, so we knew, okay, if anything, it was just a validation of, yep, there's some stuff going on up here. It was just a validation of, okay, he's seeing and feeling things. So, of course, and I think with animals, they sense stuff more so than we do. So,
yeah, definitely.
For him, I knew, because I mean, there was one that they would just play. They would just play. And he loved the whole play, and the mirror was his thing. And they would just play. But then this one particular one that would just not show up a lot, but yeah, it just would make him lose his mind. So I'm like, all right, okay, but
wherever he is, you stay away.
Stay wherever you are.
Don't.
No, thank you.
Yeah, and I think most people, based on the research that I've done, now some people have had like negative experiences with them where they really feel this sense of it means me harm. Then there are those who just say it's not so much that they feel that they want to do something to them, but it's just unnerving to wake up and just have
Yeah.
something standing over you. It's
Yeah.
a lot of people just say it's just like they're watching you.
Yeah.
So
I've never had that. I don't
yeah,
think.
luckily, no.
Yeah, thank God. Please, Father.
Yeah, I've had that. No.
No, but I've just had the whole out of the corner of the eye. For me, it's just out of the corner of the eye where you go like zoop and you're like, what the heck was that? Okay. And you just keep on moving. And I've even gone where I've turned the light on in like whatever room I saw, and mostly it's in the bathroom, and I'm like, all right. Okay. Or when I'm in the shower, like when I'm in the shower sometimes, it's just like you're like, and I've told you these stories.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, when I'm in the and it's like, okay, and I just think it's a thing of where it's like they're being mischievous or something, and it's like, okay, haha, all right, and then it's done or whatever. But I've never had that where I feel so we might need to go. It's time to put the for sale sign out. But yeah, I never had that so far. Thank God. Hopefully, never ever will.
Good. And I don't know there was another instance when I was a kid, and I probably shared this on a past Pet Spooktacular too. Other than the shadow that just stayed up against the wall as a kid, I remember telling my mom, and I still remember this, but now I can't clearly remember what they looked like. But I just remember telling her that I saw the monsters go in the wall. And I must have been, I don't think I was school age. It was somewhere, maybe, I guess I was under like 6 years old or something like that. And I don't remember this part, but she just said for a while I was afraid to play in that room because we used to have this room in the house that I grew up in. Well, I was there till I was 11 years old, and it was called the middle room. And we sort of used it as like a bedroom, but I guess in a normal house, it would have been considered the dining room, but we had a bed in there and everything. And I was sitting there and play with my dolls and my stuffed animals and everything in the bed. And we just be pretending, and they were my children and all this stuff. And I just remember that I remember it was like 3 of them at least. And I don't know why I keep wanting to say that maybe they had hoods on. I don't remember now. I can't remember exactly what they looked like, but I know they were kind of big figures, I recall, and they went in the wall. I just like they appeared and then they just sort of walked through the wall. But I described them as monsters. I told my mom the monsters went in the wall. So I don't know if they would classify as shadow people. Sometimes I think about if I could go to a hypnotist. You know how sometimes they can help you recall certain memories, but then I'm like, again, I don't know. Maybe I don't want to remember that.
I know, right?
There's
some things I don't want to go back and remember. Yeah. No, thank you.
But I did see something. I do remember that, and I do remember telling her the monsters went in the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom has like a lot of stories or whatever, and I might ask her to kind of tell me some stories so I can kind of have those on file. But
awesome if she ever came on the show.
Yeah, she has.
But she maybe could tell you some stuff.
She has wicked stories. I'm like, where you're like, can I sleep with you tonight?
I know
that kind of stuff.
Sounds like my granddad and my grandma, because they were the same way.
Yeah. She has some wicked stories because when she was younger, they used to live, at one time out in the rural area, and so things happen. Things just happen, and you're like, okay, all righty, okay. So
now our last one is, I think, the one that we have the most experience with, or at least,
oh my God, yes,
definitely. Just luckily in my case, I have not had the unfortunate circumstance like a lot of people where they say they literally see a hag or they
God,
see
Lord Jesus.
I've never visually seen. And here's the thing. Okay, first off, let's say what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about the Old Hag Syndrome. It's sort of where it starts off most times like you have the sleep paralysis, which is where you wake up, you're conscious, it's like your mind is awake, but your body,
I hate it. Oh, I hate it.
You can't move. You wake up and you can't move. But for a lot of people, my mom and grandma included, because they used to always describe it, and it would terrify me as a kid when they talk about it. They would describe it. They said like the witch was riding them. Then some people say the devil's riding them or whatever, but in our community they would say like the witch is riding you or whatever. And what they were meaning was you would feel this pressure on your chest while you were paralyzed, and it felt like something was sitting on your chest. Now I've never had that version of it. I have had the sleep paralysis, and it's weird. That kind of only happened when I was close to 30 years old, and it was when I moved out on my own. I never had it when I lived at home with my mom and grandma, but I've never had the thing where I had the pressure on my chest. But one time when I moved from where I currently live and I was in another city, I experienced a feeling of pressure on my head, and it felt like something was pushing my head down in the pillow. And it's kind of tied in with me also with these things. I sometimes have these things called false awakenings, and they're all kind of in there together with sleep paralysis, because they sort of happen after that, where you'll swear that you've woken up and everything in the environment looks just the same or whatever, but you're really still asleep. But it's really, really vivid. But back to the old hag syndrome, basically that's what it means. So I'm gonna let you talk, D, about your experience with it.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I cannot stand this syndrome thing or whatever, because it is so terrifying. I mean, for me, it's one of those things where I just feel like I am about to die. I am about to die. And it's so true, where I usually would have them when everybody's up in the front of the house and I'm in the back of the house, and I wake up. Don't even remember when I went to sleep, but I wake up. And all of a sudden you wake up and you think, okay, I'm awake. But then you realize that's all I am, awake. I cannot move. I cannot speak. I can breathe. And then you start to panic, because for me, I have this thing about being in closed in spaces. Anyway, I don't like it. So when you put me in this, and usually I'm always under the cover in some kind of way, and I can't move, I can't breathe, and it's so true. You can smell stuff, because my mom would be cooking, and I can smell the food that's cooking. And for me, I always had this feeling of something's getting ready to happen to me, and I can't let them know I need their help. And so it's like I am trying to scream, I can't scream. I am trying to move, I can't move. But here's the thing about mine. If I can figure out, because this is because they would happen to me sometimes, like it started happening to me on a frequent basis. And I was like, okay, well, I got to figure out. So it's like one of those things. It's so weird, because I kind of would say, okay. And it happened when Freddy Krueger first came out.
Oh, yes.
And so when they would go into the dream, but before they would go into the dream, or before they would go, they knew it was going to happen. So they would say, once they were in there, they needed to wake themselves up. So in my mind, I got it in my head that if it ever happened again, I needed to wake myself up. Well, how was I going to wake myself up if I couldn't move? I couldn't do this. And one time I realized that, and I don't know how this or why this happened, but I said, if I can just hit myself, or if I can will myself to move, or to hit something where it could touch me, which this is how I wake myself up. Something has to touch me, whether it's me or something. If I touch myself and hit myself, I come out like I complete it. It's instantaneously where I come out of it. So I have figured out a way to where, and it's sometimes so hard because, and I don't even know, because I can feel that I am trying with every ounce of energy, strength I have in my body to just, it's not about trying to wake up. The thing of it is now is that I'm trying to move a piece of my body against another piece of my body, where I'm trying to make my hand touch my thigh, or I'm trying to make my foot touch my ankle, or something like, because as soon as I can touch another part of my body to something, I instantaneously wake up. So when that happens, that's where my mind goes. I'm automatically saying, okay, I gotta move something on me. I have to touch something on me. And it's so freaking weird. It's so weird. And I sleep with things purposely in my bed, which we're not even gonna get into. But anyway, to just, if this happens again, where if it does happen, I can pretty much move a certain way and I will hit something just a little bit because of this. Fun fact for you. So.
Well, yeah, because if I'm home alone or whatnot, and oddly for me, I have them more in the daytime, or sometimes I can have them really early in the morning. Like if I agree with this because I read in an article where like if you've been kind of sleep deprived or whatever, I find when I haven't slept very well, and then I do happen to go to sleep and I doze off in one of those really deep states. That's when it's prone to happen. It either happens when I've taken a nap up in the day, or if I doze back off like about like 3 or 4 in the morning, I'm more prone to go through them. But what I was going to ask you, Dee, have you ever experienced the old hag thing that people are talking about, where you feel something sitting on your chest? Have you ever experienced? I've never had that side of it.
I think I had that maybe once or twice, where it's almost as if I can breathe, but it's it's labored breathing, where it's heavy breathing. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, so I don't know if, I mean, I guess it could be where there's something here, but for me, it's just like, I can breathe, but it's a labored breath rather. And it's hard to breathe. Because I don't know if it's because I am in there fighting with every bit of
you feel that, because I'll feel myself going into them, and sometimes I can't stop them, where I'll always feel my legs going paralyzed first. I'll wake up and I'll start to feel that my legs are getting numb or whatever, I can't move them, and sometimes I can force myself to wake up out of it. Now, okay, here is the scientific explanation for it, which a lot of people, like, you can tell my mom it's the scientific side of it, but they say during REM sleep, your brain causes a temporary paralysis of your muscles. Okay, so that part is true. This is very important so that you don't attempt to act out your dreams. Sleep paralysis happens when you wake up before your body completes the REM sleep cycle. That is, you become conscious before your body's ability to move is restored. And they say there are some factors that make it more likely for you to have a sleep paralysis episode. Okay, sleep deprivation, changing sleep schedules, mental stress and anxiety. Know about that? Sleeping on your back. Yep, I sleep on my back a lot. Narcolepsy, bipolar disorder, and certain medications. Some of the symptoms of it, we've already talked about: inability to move or speak while trying to sleep or immediately after waking up, perceiving strange smells or hearing sounds of approaching footsteps. Now, I have heard the strange sounds at times because I've read somewhere that sometimes people will think that they can hear some whispering. And I think I've heard that before. You hear these little kind of, I don't know, little not chanting, little chimes or so. It's weird. I have heard these little strange sounds, and I felt that thing where people will say they feel like it, little electricity or something is like going through them. It's like a charge in the air. I have felt that. Some people experience an out-of-body feeling or imminent death, hallucinations of a strong feeling of a presence in the room or an intruder in the room, seeing ghost-like shadows or glowing eyes. This causes a strong sense of danger or panic. The feeling of someone stepping on your chest, making movement impossible, described as oppressive weight on the chest. The feeling that your face, this was me, your face is being pressed into a pillow. Except they say making breathing difficult or impossible. It wasn't like my face down, but it's like I was laying on my side and it was like they were just pressing my head down into the pillow. So I did experience that. But yeah, I grew up hearing all those stories about sleep paralysis, all that type of stuff. Here are some things they recommend to kind of help you if you find yourself in that. Number one, don't fight. They say struggling to get up will increase the feeling of being pinned down, thereby increasing fear. Having fear is the most important skill to learn. So they say don't fight it. That's hard to do.
Okay.
That's hard to do. Tell yourself that you are aware this is sleep paralysis and you're okay. Don't resist the pressure you feel on your chest. So relax. They say clench and wiggle. Try to wiggle your toe or clench your foot.
That's where I'm going. That's where I go.
Number 4, they say breathe. Although breathing is automatic, focus on your breathing and don't be overcome by fear that you forget to breathe. You could also try to cough. And number 5 is interesting. They say make a face. When you realize you're in sleep paralysis, make a face like you just smell something bad. Scrunch up your face and squint. Repeat this 2 or 3 times in a row, and the paralysis will break almost immediately. That's it. I never heard that one.
Me either.
Heard that. So yeah, it's a really interesting phenomenon, but I think with mine, when I go into them, I'm more prone to have the lucid dreaming once I have a paralysis episode and I was unable to break it. Because sometimes you have them, I'll have the sleep paralysis and I can't break it, and I'll just end up going back to sleep. And after I do that, that's when I'm more prone to have the lucid dreaming, which is when I had my last really vivid one, I think, occurred in like 2010. And I think I shared this with you, D. I can't remember, where I said I was in my room and I thought I'd woken up. I thought I'd gotten out of a sleep paralysis episode, and I really hadn't. And I thought I'd cut the TV on and everything, because for me, if I can put my TV on and hear a little background noise, then I'm good. I won't go back into one if I can hear something. But I thought I was awake. I wasn't really awake. And what'll happen, I've read this too, and it's true, you'll notice that something in your environment is different. Like it'll look the same for the most part, but like your curtains may be a different color than they are in real life, or you'll try to click on a light switch and it won't work or something. And I just remember sitting in the middle of my bed and I just saw a man peer into the bedroom. I just saw his head look into the bedroom, and I was just like, okay, here we go. You're not really awake. You're not awake. You're not awake. And I just knew he's going to come in the room. Just because you don't want him to come in the room, just because you're afraid, he's going to come in the room. And sure enough, after he peered in, he came on in the room. But the weird thing is, I never got a menacing feeling from him. It was neutral. I didn't get benevolence from him, but I didn't get malevolence either, which was the most important thing. And I just remember him coming to the foot of the bed, and I'm just like propped up on my knees in the middle of the bed toward the foot. And it's weird. We locked hands. We interlocked our hands. And I was looking at him and he was looking at me. And like I said, I never sensed that he meant me any harm or anything. But I just remember in my mind, I was just like, I need to wake up now. I just want to wake up, because I know this can go left at any moment. And I don't want it to go left. I don't want, I don't want him to transform into something. Because anything can happen in that state. So I just remember I started doing the thing where I was calling on Jesus, but I wasn't like saying it out of my mouth. It was more like a telepathy type thing. And I was like, it's not working. It's not working, because I went like 7 times. And I just remember like after so long, after like 7 or 8 times, I just woke up. I just woke up out of it. But the weird thing is, when I woke up, I didn't feel any fear or anything, but I made sure I cut the TV on. And once I had the TV on, the odd thing is I laid there and went back to sleep.
No, but okay.
That one was in the daytime. I remember my husband had gone to work, and I guess this probably happened about like 8 something in the morning. So it was broad daylight and everything. And like I said, it's weird. Sometimes when I come out of them, it's like I'm okay. And once I can get something going in the background or whatever, or I just come back to reality, I can actually even lay there and go back to sleep. Now, of course, there are some nightmares I have. No, I don't want to go back to sleep.
If it's bad, I have to get up. I'm up.
If it's something really bad, I would.
I'm up, lights are on, and I don't know what it is, the power of cartoons, but animation, happy animation makes me okay. It just makes me okay.
Yes. So to prevent sleep paralysis, keep this in mind. When you can, get enough sleep. Try to get at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep per night.
Sorry.
I know for you, D. I know. And do activities to reduce or relieve stress, especially just before bedtime. And avoid sleeping facing upwards. But that's my favorite way to sleep. I sleep on my back a lot.
I sleep. I don't sleep. So I'm just there.
Rest in there. But yeah, so that's our episode. And I think we'll be probably looking at some cartoons again tonight.
I'll be working on a spreadsheet. So
you ain't got nothing to worry about then. That's so boring. I'm sure
I will be spreadsheet bound.
Well, we do appreciate you, Dee, joining us for this one. And we have one more Pet Spooktacular episode for next week. And we should be just back on at our normal Pet Spooktacular time. We're going to do Saturday at 8 p.m. And that topic is going to be want to hear a story, terrifying, alleged, real monster stories. So we'll be reading to you some alleged, real monster stories, and we'll reveal that book to you that we'll be reading from next Saturday. And we may do some independent research and find some other ones too, but I have this really neat book. But we will see you guys next Saturday at 8 p.m. And also we'll have our, let's see, I also have a blog post coming up next Friday about black cat safety. I like to do this one every single year because it's important, because you got some sickos and crazy people out there who want to adopt black cats during Halloween time, or, you know, so if you have a black cat, keep them inside during this time of year. So that's important. So check the check my site for the blog post for that, and I will post some links. And we're going to let you do your spreadsheets, Dee.
Oh, joy. Yay.
I know. Yay. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next Saturday. Bye.
Bye.